It's my honor to introduce this year's recipient of the Jim and Lynn Moroney Award winner, my friend, Mark Roppolo.
Wow, not sure I can top that, but I am now encouraged to wander off script a little bit. Abbot Dennis, Abbot Peter, members of the Cistercian clergy, alumni, classmates, family, and friends. It is a tremendous honor and privilege to be selected as the 21st recipient of the Jim and Lynn Moroney Award. Two people who are integral to the founding of Cistercian. As we take time tonight to celebrate what Cistercian means to us all, let us reflect on the generous contributions of Jim and Lynn Moroney and the other founding families of Cistercian, who, along with the Cistercian fathers, started what has become a cherished institution in the Dallas Catholic community. We are all forever grateful for the contributions of the families that helped found and sustain Cistercian in its early days. The Smiths, Thompsons, Moroneys, Aggies, Hartnetts, and many others, to name a few. The fact that the children of these families have contributed by giving so much of their time, treasure, and talent to Cistercian, as well as the greater community, over the past 35 plus years, is a testament to the example set by their parents. To start, I'd like to recognize my family here tonight, starting with my lovely and beautiful wife. And our amazing children. You were being pretty well behaved. JP, Will, Luke, and Maya are the joy of our lives and inspire Lynn and I to be better people and parents. I'm obviously not doing as well as Will did this week in reading the math sentence. Also here tonight are, as Fred mentioned, are my mom and dad, John and Marilyn Roppolo, my sister Robin and her husband Doug, my brother Joe and his wife Leslie, and my sister Mary Beth and her husband Robert. Between the four of us, we supplied our parents with 11 great grandkids, who are all very special in their own ways. Also joining us tonight are my Aunt Ann, as Fred mentioned, and her husband Forrest. And I'm forever grateful for her generosity in allowing me to live with her. Years ago, my father set an example for me by donating his time in effort to the service of the nonprofit organizations, and to this day continues to set a standard of giving for me and others. He served on the Cistercian and Ursuline school boards, to name just two of many. Despite his commitment to serving others, he never missed one of his children's sporting or school events, no matter how many busy schedules and commitments he had to juggle. My mother was, and still is, the rock of our family. She's the one who could always be counted on to provide a shoulder to lean on or a nudge in the right direction, which was not too infrequent. Joe and Robert. My brothers and sisters have always been very supportive of me, and I'm forever grateful. They provided encouragement, guidance, humor, in appropriate doses and sometimes overdoses of humility. In fact, I think they were more excited to hear Fred speak about me tonight than to hear my speech. I don't blame them. I want to take this opportunity to thank my parents for starting me on this journey The life of Jesus teaches us the measure of love is sacrifice. My parents made the necessary sacrifices, financial, temporal, and emotional, to provide for me, my brother, and my two sisters the best education and upbringing possible. Some gifts are not meant to be repaid, but to be paid forward or passed on. Fred. All right, I'm getting wound up. Many thanks for introducing me. You've been a great friend for some 30 plus years. Since Fred had fun telling a few stories about me, I thought it'd be time to pay some of his kindness. My first memory of Fred is in the third form. I was walking off the football field on a fall afternoon after practice. An overly confident / cocky fourth former caught up to me. He introduced himself and told me the history of Cistercian. I quickly came to learn that Fred was the youngest of 5 brothers to attend the school, and his parents pretty much founded and ran the school. As those of you who know his parents, this boastfulness did not come from them. It comes from Fred having to compete for attention in a household that included brothers like Jim and Jay. This brotherly competition continues to this day. On any given afternoon, and every given afternoon, you'll find Fred, Jay, and Jim heatedly arguing about important matters, not legal, but whether the cotton ball is oriented north-south or east-west. While Fred may have exaggerated a bit on that fall afternoon, and I may have exaggerated a bit in retelling the story, his pride in his family's contribution to the school continues to be well-founded. He and his brothers, mostly his Jim, parenthetical inserted there, have continued the path that their parents paved some 40 plus years ago by providing the school and the Abbey with their legal and financial resources. Fred and his better and taller half Nancy are dear friends of ours. And godparents to our son Will Henry, named after my former master, Father Henry Martin, who unfortunately passed away some 7 years ago. They're both very thoughtful, fun, and generous people. You can rest assured, I think that's the last I'm going to talk about you. As I mentioned, I was admitted for the third form year, along with such future academic all-stars as Matt Hawkins and Joe Capasso. I know without the need of fact-checking anything that we can achieve a combined total of 0 headmaster's honor rolls. And maybe 1 or 2 four master's honor rolls.
On the outside. Wasn't there a class honor roll?
Not for you. I now believe that the 3 of us were admitted for the sole reason that the class was adding a second section that year. And they needed warm bodies. They could fog a mirror and pass the test. I'm not sure that Cistercian made the right decision in admitting me in 1981, but I know it was right for me. When I first received notice concerning this award, I was on a long teleconference negotiating a lease for work and was unable to answer my phone. I received 3 calls in quick succession that showed up on my caller ID that said Cistercian. My first inkling was that something had happened at the Abbey or the school, and there was bad news. Later that night, I called Father Peter at the Abbey, hoping for good news. And this is when the lying started. Abbot Peter insisted that all was well. He had no idea who was calling or what the call was about. I see behind you is our expert Moor theologian and your former master, Father Rock. If you need to, you can consult
My confessor.
Yes. Confession, yes. Aaron, who's apparently way more truthful than the abbot, got a hold of me the next morning and told me the news. My first reaction at that time was that I am not worthy. In reviewing the past recipients, I still feel that way. I asked for a weekend to consider, and when I broke the news to my wife, she told me that I had to accept and asked if the award conferred automatic admission for our kids. As an aside, the Medal of Honor does confer automatic admission to the different academies. Obviously, Lynn's opinion prevailed, as it usually does, along with the help of a call from Peter. And then I had to face the daunting challenge of preparing a speech that would be in the same ballpark as such recent past recipients of Stewart, Rash, Johnson, Moroney, Jim Hartnett, who I thought most worthy and did a great job, unlike you, Fred. And Hawkins, to name a few. Last year's winner, Tom Lewis, set an example of giving to Cistercian, into the school, into the world, through his medical missions to Africa, that dwarfs any small contribution that I have made. He made such an amazing speech. For those of you who were here last year, get ready to be underwhelmed, if you haven't already. I hope you're not expecting such a long or poignant speech. Be assured, my anxiety here tonight and for these past few weeks is testament to the deep respect I have for this honor and for its past recipients, and the respect I have for all of you in attendance tonight. I was not entirely on board with my parents' decision to send me to Cistercian. I was forced to leave behind friends, and more importantly, girls at Cistercian. I'm sorry, at St. Monica. I had no way of knowing at the time the transformational impact that Cistercian would have on the rest of my life. My 6 years at Cistercian went by extremely quickly, with each year becoming more special than the rest, the previous. In the third form, I was indoctrinated into the early morning bus rides, Latin declinations, no girls, the Hungarian accents of Father Rock, Father Julius, and Father Matthew, Coach Pericchini's football, and all new classmates, some of which are still my best friends. In the third form, we also had the infamous Texas history trip, in which we, of course, learned and saw the Alamo, the state capitol, the hemisphere, the Natural Bridge Caverns. We also learned from Mr. Walter that he who howls with the owls by night may not soar with the eagles by day. That was after a midnight rompers in the capture the flag game. In the fourth form, we were the leaders in the middle school, so we acted like we were cool. In fact, we were so cool that we decided to indoctrinate some of the younger bus riders on a day in which Mr. Keaton's brother substituted for Mr. Walter. As the younger boys walked down the aisle to find their seats, we pushed them around, body slammed them back and forth like ping pong balls. I believe it was Les Pritchett from the third form who did not find this to be very cool. And he turned us in. That next weekend, I and 5 or so of the other tough guys received our indoctrination into the Eastern European form of martial law. Punishment called the Special Saturday Session. On a particular special Saturday, consisted of cleaning the school and the abbey, and mowing the 2-foot-high grass surrounding the abbey with a dole push mower. I think they fed us some stale bread and spoiled milk. If the weather had been colder, I might have thought we were in our very own gulag archipelago. Maybe a tiny embellishment here. In the third form, many of us went on the school, third and fourth form, I went, and many of us went on the school ski trip to Breckenridge, Colorado. These days, I think if any school were to let 10 to 16, 40 or so 10 to 16-year-olds skiing with only 4 or so supervisors, and allowed them to sleep in their very own condos without adult supervision, they'd be turned in for gross negligence. Fortunately, this was the 80s, and it was still acceptable. When not learning to ski or eat at Maggie's, we watched endless hours of MTV, which was just coming into prominence. My 5th form year was very special for me and for all us Cistercians. For it was the first year that Coach Tom Hillary became the full-time head football coach and athletic director. This mountain of a man set a standard of excellence on and off the field. We never wanted to disappoint him, and his huge stature and confidence inspired us to achieve beyond our talent. I have had the great fortune of knowing many great leaders during my life, which includes 13 years in the Navy, but I hold Coach Hillary at the top of that list. He was truly a great man, and it was wonderful to see the positive impact he had on the school, in the Abbey, and vice versa. None of us would have expected that he would succumb to a quick battle with a deadly disease, but all of us benefited from the tremendous impact he made in his shortened life, and he will never be forgotten. In the 6th form, Mike Stansel, Peter Marino, Fred Hartnett, Peter's not here, Fred Hartnett and I formed the Diaz brothers. A name chosen from watching the movie Scarface before every football game. It was supposed to signify who the best hitters of the football team were. But I guarantee you, the 2 ones that are here were some of the worst tacklers on the team. Fred was granted admission solely because we watched the movie at his house. Stansel was admitted because he could sell anything to anybody. We quickly found out that he preferred obeying his opponents instead of actually hitting them. Nonetheless, we enjoyed the camaraderie of the brotherhood, and I was pleased to get a congratulatory note from Peter, the only true Diaz brother, a couple weeks ago. In 4th form, I broke my leg before our first football game. Strange as it sounds, this is one of the best things that could have happened to me that year.
8th form, senior year.
Okay, senior year. Thank you. Thanks for the support. 3. After getting over the disappointment of missing the entire season, I found silver linings in missing time on the field. Having time to focus on improving my grades, which some alluded that may have been necessary. Getting to know my other classmates in a different light, and hanging out with the cheerleaders. This is for you guys. Our shenanigans reached an apex during our senior year. At school, we tied fishing string between the lower level classroom and the porch railing. As the sweet, innocent first formers ran by on their way to find speargrass during their breaks, we pulled the line taut and watched them go flying. Outside the classroom, some were known to attract the attention of Fire Marshal Todd by setting off the alarms at the Fire Holiday Inn. During my career in real estate, I've come to know that you shouldn't mess with the fire marshal. If I hadn't been in Wichita Falls that night, I might have learned that lesson like you guys. In the harder fashion. By our senior year, many in our class were able to do spot-on impersonations of Father Rock. Some also took particular delight in doing so loudly in the hallway outside the classroom while Father Rock was teaching moral theology of all subjects. While I could not impersonate Father Rock, and I still can't, he always blamed me because he thought that only the dumb elephant, the nickname he had for me, elephant can have such a loud and strong voice? Father Rock, you should have been scolding the previous Moroney Award winner.
So effective. I get a chance to talk?
While I do not believe my contributions to Cistercian are in keeping with the previous award winners, they have been focused in raising money for the school for the annual Alumni Scholarship Drive and for the recent capital campaign. I, like many, was fortunate to receive scholarship assistance during several of my years at the school. Therefore, the Alumni Scholarship Fund has always held a special place in my heart. My classmate, Matt Hawkins, and I were asked some 7 years ago to join the steering committee for the capital campaign by leading alumni efforts. I was puzzled by this choice of the two of us, still am, and knew that there were many better alumni to serve in that role. Of course, many local alumni were already serving the school in more important capacities. The class of '74 triumvirate, Jim Moroney, Jerry Thompson, and Peter Smith, who had spearheaded so many of the previous campaign efforts, including the building, the science building, the library, the chapel, the athletic fields, expansions, and land purchases, were already serving as co-chairs. The Anders brothers, Wade and Warren, had and still continue to be the general contractor for so many of our past projects, all while running their busy, successful construction company. Gary Cunningham was slated to provide architectural services, while Steve Rash was leading sustentation efforts. I felt the need to get back to the school and to pay it forward for those to come for many reasons. Among the many accomplishments of the campaign was to rebuild the classrooms from the studs out. The fact that the walls were still standing after so many of our WrestleMania events in between classes and various other and sundry activities was a testimony to the great architecture and craftsmanship of the initial construction. But it had come time to rebuild and to update. Another goal of the campaign was to pay off the debt on the 20 acres of land purchased to protect the serene surroundings of the school and the avenue from real estate developers, something I know a little bit about. A third goal was to contribute to the school endowment that would sustain it through its turbulent times, a testimony to the wisdom and frugality of the Hungarian way. The last goal was to build a new building to encompass a main entrance fitting of the beautiful setting and architecture of the campus, and to include a chapel in the center of the school. This is scheduled to commence this spring in the place where so many of our most educational and sporting activities took place during our lunch periods. The building that currently serves as the main entrance was our lunchroom. When the lunch supervisor turned his head or fell prey to the organized distraction of an appointed jester, we conducted real-life science and math experiments by testing the viscosity, elasticity, cohesion, and adhesion of chocolate pudding. Contests were held to see who could get the most and tightest pattern of pudding on the ceiling by slamming the open tins on the table. We rationalized such tomfoolery by imitating Mr. Martin's exclamation of Newton's law of physics. For every force, there's an equal and opposite force. Stefan Novinsky reminded me this week that we only had one microwave for a short period, and that was donated by the Brothers. We conducted other physics experiments by jamming as many metal objects into the microwave as possible to see how long it would take before it shut down. This was all done in the vein of science. We also conducted economic experiments by seeing how little money it would take Jeff Shaw or Billy Cox to drink the grease left over from a can of vending machine purchased Dinty Moore tamales. These guys remember 55 cents. This later turned into a biology experiment to see what effect grease had on the subject or victim's physiology during basketball practice. I'm not sure they could have gotten much slower. The class of '88 was certainly not the first to partake in such activities. as these were time-tested and well-honed by the preceding classes. The point of telling these tales is to explain some of my sense of obligation to rebuild what I contributed to deteriorate. Now you should understand why we really need to rebuild the old lunchroom as the last part of the campaign. And I understand, in typical Cistercian flashy style, that this new entrance building is scheduled to be called the entrance building. Our form was led by the sweetest man I will ever know, our form master, Father Henry Martin. He shepherded us with a gentle hand and an occasional tug. I am confident that he was a living saint, as he embodied all the holy qualities of Jesus: humility and kindness, faith, hope, and love. I asked several classmates to send me their memories, and consistent through all those stories was Father Henry's ability to look past our childish immaturity and see the hidden best in all of us. He was known to put an arm around a student who was failing class or having a tough time at home, and with a twinkle in his eye, to inspire and to reassure. We were 29 stray sheep, and he was our shepherd. In the face of all of our troublemaking, he could never stay mad at us for more than a few minutes because of his overwhelming love. On an 8th form field trip to Turner Falls, some of us attracted the attention of the Oklahoma State Highway Patrol for speeding and throwing objects out the windows that we may have not been old enough to possess. The law enforcement officer followed us in the parking lot and lined us up outside our car while I started to investigate the situation. Father Henry quickly sensed that his sheep were in need of him, and he approached the officer. Of course, the force was always with Father Henry. And he used his Jedi mind trick on the officer by saying that these idiots are not the ones you're looking for. The officer returned to his car sheepishly, and somehow we got off scot-free. None of us involved ever remembers receiving a rebuke, just a kind smile of a loving parent. The students who had other form masters, like Father Rock, Father Dennis, Father Bernard, Father Julius, and Father Peter, all have a special bond and affinity for their respective form masters. It is often how you introduce yourself to an alumni who you're meeting for the first time, and how you remember who graduated in what class. For instance, I know that such and such was in Father X's class. It was a couple years before me, so he must have been in the class of such and such. The priests and faculty use the same grouping classification to remember the growing alumni. In fact, to this day, Father Peter often introduces me to the other alumni as having graduated in the class of 1996, Father Henry's last class. While this award is meant to recognize the contributions of an alumnus to the school, I feel like I have continuously received more from Cistercian than I could have ever given back and ever could. Every time I'm on campus, or in the presence of more than one alum, I feel enriched and restored. This feeling was created and perpetuated by the many monks and long-tenured faculty who have continuously given of themselves to a greater good beyond oneself. This strikes me as the embodiment of community, fellowship, and Christian love. All who have been around the school as long as some of us are confident that the school has changed for the better. The students are smarter, better behaved, and more well-rounded in the fine arts. We were lucky to have been given a gift. that is Cistercian. I started the process of preparing for tonight with anxiety, as writing and delivering the speech is better left to people like my brother Joe and my classmate, the silver-tongued media wonder, Tim Rogers. I sent Tim a couple hints that I would love for him to write my speech, all of which he ignored or was too inebriated to comprehend. That comment came from your best friend sitting to your left.
True.
Having to write this brought back so many fun memories, but more importantly, helped remind me of all that I have to be grateful for. My wonderful family and friends, and having been blessed and enriched by the Cistercian community. I'm grateful for the education and lifelong fellowship, and also for the Catholic faith that has grounded me during deployments in the Navy and surviving the stress of caring for 4 children in diapers at the same time. So I'm grateful for many things tonight. The early Cistercians, who through divine providence landed in this strange foreign land, found the Abbey and the school. The leadership of Abbot Dennis, my headmaster, Father Bernard, and now Father Peter and Father Paul. The younger Cistercians who have revitalized this Abbey and the school, and who will teach and train the future generations, hopefully mine included. My parents, who made the sacrifices for me to go to Cistercian, whose selfless acts of love have yet to cease, and who set an example of selfless love for their children is being passed on to their grandchildren. Family on both sides whose love and support of Lynn we've been lost without, and 4 wonderful children who inspire me and make me a better person. Lastly, and most importantly, my wonderful and amazing wife, Lynn. I could go on for hours about her, but I'd probably break down. Lynn, you know that I'm more sentimental than my sometimes stoic nature reveals, so I can't say what I would say, but you're wonderful. Finally, thank all of you for sharing in this special evening with me and my family. It's an incredible and most humbling honor. God bless.